Today I wanted to talk a lot about risk management, and how leverage and margin feed into that, because these can be quite complicated topics, and I'd like to simplify it so that it's at least understandable, and I will try to clean that up post edit to try and make it at least simple to understand how I see it or visualize it. So some of my explanations may be a little wishy-washy, or they may not quite math accurately, but that's because, like I said, I'm trying to explain the concepts here in an understandable way rather than drill down and numb your brain, because at the end of the day it doesn't matter how it works, it just matters that it works. Very similarly to driving a car, you can get in and push the go button and the stop button, and you don't actually need to know how the engine ticks over in order to be able to drive that thing on the road. And that's basically my philosophy around leverage and margin, but I will go into how they work a little, without trying to become a mechanic and explain it. You'll often see people referring to risk as R. You know, I risk R, or I have 3 risk on something, and I whatever. That R is an arbitrary number that they have made up. For instance, if I wanted to risk 1% of my account per trade, that would be 1R. If it was 0.5%, that would be 1R. It is a method of managing your risk. I know that on average I lose 3R and I make 4R overall, right? So if I had a risk strategy where I did something like this, and this was my risk here, and I had this set to 1 to 4 like this, does that work anywhere here, for instance? Close enough, right? So say this was what I was trying. Oh, this actually works here, I think. Look, it does. And I was willing to risk 1R on that, which, as you can see, this is what this is here, and then that trade pulls all the way up and I get that 4R win. So I risked 1R and I've made 4, but the reality is that overall I may be trying to do, if I copy this, I may have tried to have done that here, and as you can see I would have lost this one. So if in my strategy, whatever that is, I might lose 3 times and then win once, so I'm actually only winning 1/4 of my trades. I'm winning 1 in 4 trades, but I actually am risking 3R, 1 here and 2 back here, losing 3 times, but then when I win 4R. So I have a positive risk to reward ratio. So I'm risking 3R to make 4R. That is how R is conceptualized. And this is where things start to get more interesting. You see, if you have a look at this, you may notice that on this day here, there is less movement overall on the candles than what there was back here and back here. There's a huge amount of movement here. Very, very small movement, and not only small movements, but small candle. Now, if I was to take the same physical size trade every time, and then what you would find is that if the market conditions change, I haven't adapted to that. If all of a sudden the candles get huge, and I'm basing my strategy based on, say I had a one-to-one type strategy like this, and I was trying to catch one movement in one candle like this, and then the next day I get these big movements like this, you can see that my strategy, which worked okay over on these shorter candle time frames, no longer works over here. And this is where managing your risk and comes into play, because we're no longer talking about taking a specific unit size. So say for example I took a one lot trade every time. Well, a one lot trade over here may survive a single hour, but over here if this was the equivalent of a one lot trade, I'd get stopped out instantly. What I do is I dynamically change my lot sizing so that the value of the movement that I am trying to target remains consistent. What does that mean? That means that if I'm working with this over here and I want this to be $100, so if say I'm targeting, so say I was targeting this movement here, and I was thinking it was going to change direction, and I wanted to base my amount of movement on that channel. So I did that. This is just an example, and I put this at the bottom of the channel the next time it touched, right here. So this would be my buy price. The moment I'd have an alert on this channel, and the moment that it hit the bottom of that channel or a limit order, I would take that trade. The trade amount is this, right? Say that this is I'm targeting I just buy one arbitrary lot, right? What I'm trying to do is make one candle worth the same here, and then there's a change in the market, which you can see is represented here. All of a sudden, instead of my strategy working over 3 or 4 hours as I calculated, all of a sudden these movements can knock me out in a single candle, very, very big, very consistently, very easily, yada yada yada. So what I would want to do in that case is I would want my channel to be, say, this size. And the problem is now that if I wanted to make my risk size one channel length like this, as I did earlier, you can see that there's a huge difference in the size between them. But the problem is that if I was still just taking a one lot trade each time, meaning that this trade here, which is worth one lot win or lose, this trade here might be worth 2.5 lots win or lose. If I'm trying to lose 3 to win 4, and I lose 3 like this and then win 1 like this, all of a sudden my risk ratios are thrown out of whack, and my risk management system doesn't work anymore, because the value of what I won was worth less than the ones that I was losing. And so due to this, I dynamically change the value of my risk so that it is always a consistent number based on the amount of movement of the candles that I am using in my technical analysis. I'm dynamically changing my lot sizing to keep my risk consistent. Yeah, I know what I mean. Hopefully I edit this and it makes sense to you too, right? Now I said in the earlier video that I can manage all of this in this tool so that it calculates those numbers for me, so you don't have to worry about that. The main point that I'm trying to express in this part of the video is just that your lot sizing can be dynamic in order to have a consistent risk, so that your risk management strategy remains consistent depending on the time of day and the amount that your candles are moving on average. This is assuming that you have a candle-based strategy that allows or accounts for the movements of candles, because candle movements change over time. So that's the first step, and now we'll get into a little bit on how to actually make those calculations.
So a couple of days later, still editing that video, and I've cut nearly 20 minutes out, made it down to about 10, and I think that's long enough for one video, and I will explain leverage and margin in another one. So we'll end this here, and I will see you in the next video.